UFOs, or unidentified flying objects, have fascinated people since the dawn of time, though unusual objects in the sky weren't always called UFOs, of course. Here are some interesting facts about UFOs, including early strange sightings, an encounter with the White House, the definition of the term flying saucer, and the truth of Roswell, New Mexico. In regard to sightings from the American Air Force, the term UFO was first used in the 1950s. Unidentified Flying Object, or UFO, is an acronym that writer Donald Keyhoe first used in an issue of Airline Pilot in 1953, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. However, Keyhoe largely refers to the phrase in the article and quotes from the U.S. Air Force's Air Technical Intelligence Center reports. A UFOB was described as any airborne object in a paper from the 1950s as long as it cannot be clearly identified as a recognizable item due to its performance, aerodynamic qualities, or odd features. The list of recognizable items includes things like planets, balloons, and birds. UAP is one of the acronyms used in more recent government reports. There are other acronyms used to describe these objects than UFO. Among other inventive acronyms, a recently published government report utilizes UAP, or Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. The term UFO only refers to the flying objects and not to aliens. Although the two phrases are of course related in the public perception, just because we name something a UFO doesn't necessarily mean there are aliens involved. However, you can refer to them as ETBs, or extraterrestrial beings, if you really want to talk about little green men and seem extremely official about it. ETCs, or extraterrestrial crafts, are another thing. By the way, the terms on this list were included in unsuccessful Freedom of Information Act requests, according to the NSA. In case you were wondering, yes, people did request ALF-containing documents from the government. The band Foo Fighters got their moniker from an old phrase for what looked like an alien craft. Although Dave Grohl leads the absolutely badass music group known as the Foo Fighters, the phrase actually has roots in World War II. Members of the 415th Night Fighter Squadron combined the words Foo and Fighters to describe the strange, bothersome balls of light they saw in the sky over Germany. The phrase Foo appears to have been coined by Smokey Stover, a well-known comic book character at the time. Grohl has stated that there's a treasure trove of band names in those UFO books, so take heed, aspiring rock stars. Grohl was reportedly reading a lot of books regarding UFOs at the time. The phrase flying saucer first gained popularity due to a misquoted pilot. The origin of the term flying saucer is quite interesting. It appears that anything that happened on June 24, 1947, gave it its big break. When searching for aircraft debris, pilot Kenneth Arnold saw 9 metallic objects in the sky while flying close to Mount Rainier. They were enormous and traveling at a speed of roughly 1,200 miles per hour. According to Arnold, each one was nearly the size of a DC-4 jet. When he reported them believing they were military planes, the media misquoted him as saying the objects were flying saucers. In an interview with renowned journalist Edward Murrow, Arnold recalled, "When I described how they flew, I stated that they flew like somebody took a saucer and threw it over the sea. These objects more or less fluttered like they were, I'd say, boats on very rough water or very rough air of some type." The majority of newspapers misinterpreted and misquoted that as well. They claimed that I had stated that they resembled saucers, but I had just stated that they flew like saucers. Flying saucer sightings were reported in 40 other states in the weeks that followed as the false statement gained traction. Additionally, the term was once essentially used as shorthand for a UFO. A UFO article appeared in Life magazine once. The Had We Visitors from Space story, which was published in the April 1952 issue of Life, highlighted 10 UFO cases that, according to one scientist interviewed in the article, have an out-of-world basis. He highlighted characteristics of the aircraft, such as their capacity for acceleration and the fact that no human pilot could endure the maneuvers they performed as proof of their extraterrestrial origins. For centuries, writers have discussed UFOs. People were observing UFOs in the skies and either depicting them in drawings or writing about them long before Kenneth Arnold or Life. In a 2007 article for the Classical Journal, Richard Stuthers stated that claims of what we could today refer to as unidentified flying objects have been made and kept throughout recorded history. If additional information were accessible to us, we could discover that most of these could be explained by standard scientific hypotheses, if not all of them. However, there is still a limited amount of perplexing stories that, regardless of the interpretation given to them, represent a phenomenon that cuts across centuries of time and many diverse cultures. Some ancient UFO sightings can be explained by nature. Stuthers concentrated on the ancient Romans in that study for the Classical Journal since they frequently reported about unusual sky phenomena. Certain of them can unquestionably be explained by natural events, such as meteor showers or eclipses. Some people, not so much. It's more difficult to explain other historical UFO sightings. An unusual incident occurred in 74 BCE that was witnessed by thousands of people. As Plutarch described it some 150 years later, a massive, flame-like form, silver in color and resembling a wine jar, intervened between two opposing armies. A spark was observed to fall from a star and to develop as it approached the Earth, according to Pliny the Elder. Before returning to the sky, it gradually grew to be the same size as the moon. Additionally, there were accounts of a spectacle of ships and spherical shields being seen in the sky around the 200s BCE. In the 16th century, reports of a UFO war surfaced in Europe. Moving forward to the 1560s, people in Germany and Switzerland reported witnessing weirdly shaped objects engaged in aerial combat and flying around. Things don't become much less bizarre at this point. In America, reports of UFO encounters date back to the 17th century. In what would eventually become the United States, the first written account of a UFO dates back to the 1630s, when three men who were out on Boston's Muddy River at night saw a light in the sky and reported it. When the light stood still, it flamed up and was about 3 yards square. When it ran, it was contracted into the figure of a swine. It ran as swiftly as an arrow towards Charlestown, and so up and down for about 2 or 3 hours, Governor John Winthrop wrote in his account of the incident. Even worse, the boat the men were in had relocated a mile upstream by the time the episode was over, and they had no idea how it had happened. When World War II ended, the U.S. Air Force started looking into UFOs. Modern UFO study exploded after World War II. As reports of strange objects in the sky increased, the government ordered an investigation by the U.S. Air Force. In 1948, the Air Force established Project Sign, the first of 5 task groups. Project Grudge swiftly succeeded it, and Project Blue Book, the most well-known UFO investigation, took its place in the early 1950s. The most well-known UFO incident ever happened close to Roswell, New Mexico. Something crashed on a property outside of Roswell sometime in the summer of 1947. Bright wreckage composed of rubber strips, tinfoil, a pretty tough paper, and sticks, the rancher who found the debris described it as. He gave the sheriff some of the wreckage in the beginning of July, and the sheriff then enlisted the military's heavy hitters. The remainder of the debris was gathered by personnel stationed at Roswell Army Airfield, and soon after, their press agent issued the following statement. The intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force, Roswell Army Airfield, was fortunate enough to obtain a disc thanks to the cooperation of one of the local ranchers and the sheriff's office of Chavez County. Yesterday, the many reports regarding the flying disc came true. The Roswell incident ignited a UFO frenzy across the nation. Even as the Army was retreating, the declaration generated news stories across the nation. There is no such gadget as the disc known to the Army, at least this far down the line, according to General George Ramey, who described the disc and noted his belief that it was a piece of a weather balloon, as Dick Pierce of the San Francisco Examiner reported on July 9, 1947. Pierce noted that the wreckage was actually the box kite radar reflector of a weather balloon and that the initial remark was the boner of the Army's public relations official, adding that while the mistake lasted, it was a honey. For the foreseeable future, reports of UFOs will be gathered. Unfortunately, because to factors like poor data and scant reporting, we currently do not have an explanation for these occurrences. Nevertheless, these complaints will continue to be gathered and investigated because these UAPs potentially endanger military aircraft and national security. Therefore, the truth could still exist. That was for today. Thank you for staying with us. Don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our channel.